Okay, this is the throttle cable portion. I have unloosened this nut here. Allows me a little bit of play here to pull the cable, and then I'm supposed to be able to take this here, and this is the cable nut at the end, they call it, and I'm supposed to be able to pull that up through and up through and out. Yep, just like that. Comes out just like this. Just like that. Now it'll go back in underneath like this and back through and like that, and I'll tighten that back up. Do this one more time. It'll go back up through like this. It'll go in like that, and I'll tighten this back up and adjust this a little bit down, a couple threads down. So that's the throttle cable being removed. From the throttle unit, and then all you do is take the Phillips screwdriver and undo this from here. Well, maybe you do. I think I might be better off undoing this somehow. Just pulling it through there. I think that's what I'm going to do. Just unbolting this here. And pulling it back through, and that releases the throttle cable. I'm going to put them back. I don't want these things floating free. Then undoes the throttle cable. And again, the carburetor sits down in there like this. That goes back on like that. Wraps around there. Goes back into the nut release, the cable nut release, or cavity, I mean, and that basically releases my carburetor. Now I've got the carburetor in hand, and that's the part I got to work on. So I'm going to shut this one down, as I've got her pulled out now. I've got an O-ring on the bottom of this that I got to make sure stays, and stays in good shape. And I'll do a video just on the carburetor. So anyhow, I got her pulled, and that's where we're at for right now. I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish. I got this towel in here to protect the anything falling into the head there. I know this is the air. This is an air valve, an air input valve. I don't know if there's anything to check on that. I'm going to look. Throttle cable. You know, I got the throttle cable here. Let me raise this up a little bit. That throttle cable here. This is the input to the air filter, which is on the other side. This is the throttle sensor cable connector, throttle position sensor. This is the what do they call this one again? This is the starter enhancement valve, SE valve they call it, or bi auto starter they call it, bi starter auto. I'm sorry, they call it. Fuel line. Let's see here. The water line with the tracer. I got it sitting back here for right now. And my vacuum hose is right here. That's pretty much it. It wasn't too bad undoing this. taking it out. I had a little bit of problem with the two bolts here. This side here is tough to deal with. You have to wrench it all the way. That part I found on this side. But right here it goes into the head. The two bolts here. On this side here, I had you have to wrench it all the way. It was ridiculous. I even used some long needle nose here so I could capture it when I'm unthreading it, and then pull it out, and then release it. This side here I can grab a hold of. I can finger loosen it and tighten it, but that side I could not. But again, fuel lines, one more time. The water line here with the tracers back there, I got it sitting back there for right now. Got a bolt stuck in it. Throttle cable lays this way. The throttle cable lays this way again, like that. The SE valve, throttle position sensor. This is the air filter inlet, and there's a vacuum hose up here that I got tucked up here. And on the carburetor, I'll show real quick here. This is a fuel line. This is the vacuum hose connection. This is the water inlet connection, water line, throttle, and then air inlet. This is the throttle position sensor. This is the starter enhancement valve, or bi-starter auto valve, whatever you want to call it. You measure these pins here, and they're supposed to read between 2.5 to 5 ohms, these two pins here, and that tells you they're okay. If it's lower than 2.5 or higher than 5, then it's bad. That's like a $40 part right there. I'm going to look and see if there's anything to check on the throttle position sensor. This is the input to the head right here. This is where all the fuel goes and the air mixture happens. This is the input to the air valve, to the air filter, I'm sorry. This is the slow jet. There's a float under here. I'll do a video just on this part here, just on the carburetor. I'll do a video on that. Again, that's the slow jet there. I've got to blow up on this whole thing, but kind of did a little homework first. And this screw here, not removable. Just leave it there. Just undo it and pull the throttle arm right out of there. It's easy to do. You remove this here. There's a needle valve. You can see it right through here. You can actually see it right there. And that needle valve is what they say sticks. And there's a rubber membrane up here. It's part of the piston, they call it, the valve piston for the way this carburation works. And I've taken this off. There's a long spring in there. I've taken this off and I've cleaned that several times. I even sprayed in here. It hasn't done any good. So inspecting the carburetor, everybody says look at the slow float or slow needle valve. That might be bad, dirty. There's some other needle valves in here besides the float, because again, this thing's been sitting for 2 years basically with nothing happening. So it's time, I think, to go through a carburetor clean. But anyways, we'll get to that one next. But this is what I've got so far, and we'll see you then.